The envelope was beige, unmarked, and absurdly ordinary, except for the fact that it hadn't been there when Michael Fairchild left for work that morning. Now, at 6:42 p.m., it sat dead center on the front porch like it owned the place. No address, no stamp, no note. Just his name written in careful block letters, Michael. He picked it up like it might bite. Inside, a single photograph. It took him 2 seconds to understand what he was seeing and a third second for the world to tilt just slightly beneath his feet. It was a picture of his wife, Rachel, laughing, head tilted back in a way that used to be just for him. And beside her, a man Michael didn't recognize, unless recognizing the expression mattered more than the face. They weren't kissing, but they might as well have been. Her body language told the whole story, and his hand, placed so gently on her hip, felt like a signature. Michael stood there a long time on the porch, still holding his work bag, tie loosened, staring at a moment he hadn't lived through, but would now never forget. He didn't call her. He didn't storm inside. He didn't even finish unlocking the door. Instead, he walked around the side of the house and sat on the bench beneath the orange tree they'd planted 3 years ago during their new beginning phase. The fruit had started to sour that summer, and they joked it was symbolic. Now it just felt prophetic. There was no return address. No note. Just the photograph, slid under the welcome mat like some unholy newspaper delivery. Rachel got home an hour later. Her keys jingled. He heard the door unlock, her heels click against the hardwood, and then, Mike. He didn't answer. A pause. You're not gonna believe the traffic. I swear, there's a conspiracy on Maple Avenue. Mike? He still didn't speak. She finally spotted him through the side window, sitting like a statue in the twilight. Everything okay? She asked, stepping out onto the path in her expensive flats, the ones he had noticed more often lately, probably because they didn't match their lifestyle but did match her sudden obsession with office mixers. He held up the photograph. Said nothing. Her face didn't fall. It froze. She stared at it for a second too long. That was all the confirmation he needed. Where'd you get that? She asked, her voice flat. It was delivered, he said. No return address. Just me and this. Rachel glanced around, scanning the neighborhood like the truth might be hiding in someone's hedge. It's not what it looks like, she said. He smiled. Not a warm smile. The kind of smile you give a magician who just pulled a rabbit out of your own hat. No, he said. Because it looks exactly like what it looks like. Mike, she said, stepping forward. Can we not do this here? I haven't said anything yet. I can explain. That, he said, rising, would be a first. There was a strange comfort in the calmness. No yelling, no grand declarations. Just the slow, cold realization that the rope tying them together had snapped long ago, and only one of them noticed it today. I need some air, he said. We can talk. Not tonight. He stepped around her, back through the gate, down the sidewalk like a man walking out of his own story. The photograph still in his hand. He didn't know where he was going yet, but for the first time in a long time, he knew exactly what he was walking away from. Michael didn't check into a hotel so much as disappear into one. He chose the Belridge Inn, a crumbling business traveler relic nestled behind a strip mall and a shuttered Payless shoe source. It smelled like citrus-scented regret and burnt coffee filters. But it had what he needed: distance. Privacy. A room with a door that locked both ways. Room 312. The clerk didn't ask questions. Michael appreciated that. He handed over a fake smile, a real credit card, and took the elevator up without saying a word. The room was beige. Of course it was. 2 twin beds. A flickering wall sconce. A mini fridge that growled like a dying animal every 20 minutes. Michael stood by the window for a long while, watching the parking lot below. Watching Rachel's betrayal play over again in his head like a home movie no one asked for. He still hadn't called her. Still hadn't told anyone. He didn't want advice. He didn't want comfort. He wanted understanding. Which no one could give, not yet. Not until he understood something himself. That night, Michael didn't sleep. Instead, he opened his laptop, typed Rachel's name into a private search engine, and started digging. Her LinkedIn was up to date. So was her Instagram. Her girls' night posts had ramped up in recent weeks, too many faces blurred, too many drinks artfully posed. Rachel never drank gin, but now there was a bottle in every other picture. There was a man in 2 of them. Same face. Same easy smile. Always hovering a step away, like he was waiting for a reveal. Michael reverse-searched one of the photos. Elliot Harrow, Director of Accounts, Claymore Strategies. He clicked through Elliot's profile. Full suit. Lacrosse player. Inspirational quotes about teamwork and grit. A man who looked like he thrived on attention and habitually went after married women like it was a competitive sport. Michael didn't feel rage. He felt something slower, denser, like a plan stretching its limbs after a long hibernation. He copied Elliot's full name, phone number, and work address into a private note. Then he did something Rachel wouldn't have expected from the man who folds his socks. He logged into the dummy email he hadn't touched since grad school. No name. No link to him. Just a place to store information he wasn't supposed to have. He created a folder. Named it Harvest. The name was unintentional at first, but then he remembered the orange tree. The sour fruit. The metaphor Rachel laughed off. He smiled. Harvest sounded just right. The next morning, Michael watched Rachel leave for work from across the street. She looked put together, sharp, confident. Like a woman with secrets tucked neatly behind lip gloss and tailored blouses. She didn't look like someone who knew she'd been found out. She didn't look over her shoulder. Michael made a note of that. He wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. He was going to collect. Watch. Listen. Learn. He spent the next 2 days camped out in room 312. Subscribed to a people tracking service. Created burner accounts. Pulled copies of public records. Even found a Reddit thread where Elliot had commented on vacation rentals in Aruba. Everything people do leaves fingerprints. Michael had never considered himself vengeful. But this wasn't about vengeance. This was about truth. Not just the kind you stumble into, but the kind you build methodically. By Thursday, Michael had a full dossier. Where they met. When the affair likely started. Password resets. Hotel check-ins. A note in Rachel's calendar that read, Client dinner, The Orchard. He'd seen that name before. The Orchard wasn't a restaurant. It was a wellness retreat. The kind that catered to professionals and billed itself as a mindful escape. He clicked the link. Their next couple's weekend was in 10 days. Limited availability. Michael booked 2 spots under the name Thomas and Rachel Farrell. Then he sent a gift email from the Orchard's official site to Rachel's inbox. You've been selected for a complimentary weekend experience, 2 guests. All expenses covered. Just say yes. He watched the email deliver. Watched it sit unread for 10 minutes. Then 20. At 8:16 p.m., she clicked it. At 8:18, she forwarded it to someone. Michael didn't need to guess who. By 8:22, she had replied to the retreat confirming her RSVP. For 2. Michael stared at the screen for a long time. Then stood, stretched, and poured himself a glass of water from the bathroom sink. The Orchard had always been hers. Her metaphor. Her hopeful fruit. But now? Now it was his trap. Michael had never been the kind of man who plotted. But something changed when Rachel forwarded that retreat invitation without a second thought. No questions. No hesitation. Just that subtle little click, as if cheating came with RSVP buttons now. He stared at the confirmation email she'd sent to the Orchard. Looking forward to a relaxing, private weekend. It'll be just the 2 of us. No distractions this time. Smiley face. Smiley face. That one stung more than the photo. She'd used that exact emoticon once, years ago, when they planned their first getaway. A lake cabin. 2 nights. 1 bottle of wine that they never finished because they couldn't stop laughing. Michael still remembered the sound of her laugh back then. Back before it turned sharp and performative. This new version of her laugh? It belonged to Elliot now. The retreat was 10 days away. Just outside Aspen. Private bungalows. Fireplaces. Aromatherapy. The kind of place designed to detox your guilt and wrap your lies in silk ropes. Michael booked his own flight that same night. Different airline. Different arrival time. He paid in cash at the counter like a man escaping a crime scene, only he was running toward one. That week, he lived in limbo. Room 312 became his planning bunker. The bed stayed untouched. Clothes stayed folded. But the desk? That was his war room. He mapped the property. Researched the staff. Learned about the co-founder, some vaguely spiritual entrepreneur named Callie Wynn who gave TED Talks about emotional minimalism. He watched an entire 18-minute talk where she described the power of soul boundaries. He took notes. Rachel told him she had a work presentation in Atlanta that weekend. Bold. Michael had nodded slowly when she said it during a brief phone call. She didn't know he was in town. She didn't know he was watching her through a Zoom recording filter that mirrored her laptop screen. She didn't know he'd seen Elliot's name pop up in her Uber ride receipts 3 times that week. She didn't know that Michael had already called the Orchard and posed as Thomas Farrell to request a special welcome note to be placed in their suite. He wrote it himself. To my darling Rachel, let this weekend be the start of our next big secret. No more hiding. No more rules. Just us. T. It was dripping with just the right kind of sleaze to make her feel seen and misjudged at the same time. He wasn't planning to intercept them at the retreat. Not directly. Not yet. He just wanted to be there. To watch the performance from the wings. To see what they looked like when they thought no one was watching. That was the part he needed, the truth without an audience. Because Rachel had become a master at controlling the narrative. Sweet, tired wife, loyal partner, trying her best. He believed it for years. Until she stopped being careful. Until the wine glasses and the photos in the RSVP told a different story. On the day of departure, Rachel texted him one last time. Atlanta bound. Big pitch. Wish me luck. Love you. Red heart. Michael stared at the heart emoji. He didn't respond. Instead, he boarded a flight 2 hours later, a window seat with no view, just clouds and silence and a carry-on full of strategy. When he landed in Colorado, the air was thinner, cleaner. He took a shuttle up the mountain, surrounded by strangers in Patagonia jackets talking about soul healing and chakra detoxes. Michael just watched the trees blur past the window. The orchard sat at the top of a winding road like a promise waiting to be broken. Wood beams. Stone fireplaces. Fake rustic perfection. He checked into his own bungalow under a different name. The clerk didn't blink. Enjoy your stay, Mr. Moore. He would. That night, from the privacy of his suite, he watched from a slope behind the main lodge as a silver SUV pulled up. Rachel stepped out first. Hair curled, smile flawless. She adjusted her scarf the way she always did when she was nervous. Elliot followed, lugging a duffel bag, grinning like he'd just won something. They walked in holding hands. Michael didn't take a photo. Didn't need to. Some images burn themselves into your mind whether you want them to or not. But he did take one small action. He opened his phone and wrote a message, not to Rachel, but to someone else. A journalist friend. A woman who owed him a favor from an expose years ago involving a disgraced local politician. He typed, "Still looking for a high-profile scandal with real teeth? I might have something for you. Give me 72 hours. Then he looked back toward the lodge, where Rachel and Elliot were vanishing into the warm light of the lobby. The weekend had just begun. And Michael? Michael was just getting started. Michael had always been good at noticing what others missed. It wasn't a talent. More like a curse he honed in silence over the years, watching Rachel drift further from him in millimeters, not miles. So it made sense that when he checked into Bungalow 9 at the orchard, his eyes went straight to the ceiling. Corner-mounted. Black dome. Subtle. A camera. Not for security. Too discreet for that. No visible wires. The kind they use in luxury wellness resorts for customer experience review. Which really meant, we watch. We study. We sell calm. Michael turned on the room's voice assistant. Play guest orientation, he said. A soft chime. Then a recorded voice, calming, vaguely British, filled the air. Welcome to the orchard, where renewal begins with honesty. All private spaces are monitored discreetly for your safety and to ensure personalized service. No footage is stored beyond 72 hours unless required for incident review. Your privacy is our priority. He almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because that disclaimer meant somebody, somewhere, could see what happened in those rooms. And that was leverage. He didn't need to hack the system. He just needed a reason. A question. A request that wouldn't sound like revenge, only curiosity. Michael slid his laptop from the drawer, pulled up the resort's internal portal. He'd found the employee login page 3 nights ago, and began guessing passwords like a man who understood people better than they understood themselves. It only took 18 tries. Cali Win 1984. Of course. Co-founder ego. Birth year. Classic. The portal was minimalist. A booking dashboard. Staff schedules. And a folder marked guest behavior tags. He clicked. Inside, a goldmine. Notes from the staff about guests, things like tends to overdrink, requests late turn down, argues with partner over dietary restrictions. And there it was. Suite 4, Rachel Farrow and Elliot Harrow. Tag, excessive PDA. Possible prior romantic entanglement. Tone shift during check-in, tension? Michael's eyes narrowed. Tone shift. Tension. Interesting. He scrolled further and found a time-stamped video log labeled Suite 4, Friday night, 8:43 p.m. Temptation clawed at him. But he didn't click play. Not yet. He wasn't here for footage. Not directly. He needed to know what they were saying when they thought no one was listening. And for that, he had something better. The orchard, for all its privacy, gave each bungalow a complimentary wellness bracelet, a wearable designed to track heart rate, sleep cycles, stress levels. What they didn't advertise was that it also recorded audio snippets, triggered by sudden spikes in pulse or emotion. Michael wore his. So would Rachel. So would Elliot. And unlike the camera footage, those files were stored in cloud-linked folders tied to the guest accounts. He accessed theirs. It was labeled under their fake names, of course. But a note in the system confirmed. Thomas Farrow requested custom bracelet sync. which meant every word they spoke during a moment of tension or excitement. Every betrayal could be found right here. He downloaded the first flagged audio file. Timestamp: Friday, 10:12 p.m., Suite 4, elevated stress. Rachel's voice, low and sharp. You didn't have to be weird to check in. You almost blew it. Elliot, smug. I was just surprised. The place is fancier than I expected. Rachel, just don't use my real name again. They didn't catch it, but still. Elliot, relax, babe. You're too tense. This is supposed to be fun. Then a pause. Then laughter. Then the unmistakable sound of kissing. Michael closed the file. He didn't flinch. He didn't let it burn. He simply logged it. Not because he needed confirmation of the affair, but because Rachel had just admitted to using a false identity at a private resort. That wasn't just a lie. That was a liability. He downloaded for more clips. All of them told the same story. Elliot pressing for more, Rachel tempering him. She wanted control. He wanted chaos. A doomed formula, perfect for unraveling. By midnight, Michael had what he needed. He returned to the main site and submitted a guest inquiry, requesting footage from Suite 4 for the prior evening, citing a noise disturbance and his interest in reporting inappropriate behavior. He kept it polite, not accusatory, the kind of thing that wouldn't raise red flags until it was too late. The system confirmed receipt. He shut the laptop. The next morning, he walked the grounds like just another guest. Mindful, neutral, smiling at the yoga instructors and the early risers with turmeric lattes. That's when he saw them, Rachel and Elliot, crossing the path near the koi pond. She was laughing too hard. Her hand gripped his forearm, possessive. He leaned in, whispered something in her ear. She didn't see Michael, but Elliot did. Just a glance. A flash of confusion. Recognition. He hesitated. Michael turned away. He didn't stop walking. Didn't flinch. If Elliot mentioned it later, "Hey, I think I saw your husband," Rachel would laugh and say, "He's in Atlanta." That was the beauty of certainty. It made people blind. Back in his suite, Michael opened his laptop again. A new email. Subject: video footage ready for review, Suite 4. He opened it. No need to watch the whole thing. Just 1 minute. Just enough to catch Elliot lifting a wine bottle, slipping off Rachel's sweater, mumbling, "We're getting good at this." Then Rachel, "We better be. We're not going back." Michael paused it there. He stared at her face frozen on the screen, eyes closed, smiling, unaware. And for the first time in months, he felt nothing. Not love. Not rage. Just clarity. This wasn't about saving a marriage anymore. This was about telling the right story and making sure Rachel heard it from someone other than herself. Michael waited until the second morning of the retreat, the day they offered couples sound baths and blindfolded trust walks, to send the email. Not to Rachel. To himself. From an address that looked like it belonged to the Orchard's concierge. Wellness at Orchard Experience, CO, with the .co barely distinguishable from the resort's actual .com. Inside, a simple message. Mr. Harrow, we've received several guest complaints involving your behavior in Suite 4, including excessive noise and inappropriate use of your guest profile. Additionally, a recording error revealed discrepancies in your registered name and payment method. Please visit the reception desk at your earliest convenience to resolve the issue. Sincerely, Orchard Management. He waited exactly 7 minutes. Then he forwarded it. Not to Elliot. To Rachel. With no added text. No commentary. Just a clean forward, as if it landed in the wrong inbox. Then he sat back in his chair, one leg crossed over the other, sipping black coffee from the resort mug like it was any other Sunday. Let the panic breathe. 22 minutes later, Rachel responded. Who is this? Why did I get this? What's going on? 5 minutes after that, another message. You sent this to the wrong person. Michael didn't reply. He waited. At 10:04 a.m., Elliot stormed into the lodge reception in a wrinkled white linen shirt, his face flushed. The concierge smiled like it was just another day of detox smoothies and deep breaths. Elliot leaned in, whispering fiercely. Michael, seated near the fireplace, pretended to read a brochure about intentional silence. But he caught enough. We never made noise. And I didn't use my real name because look, just delete whatever you think you saw. Okay. The concierge blinked. Confused. Michael turned the page of the brochure, hiding a smirk. Now Rachel would have to deal with something she hated more than guilt, a man unraveling in public. Let Elliot sweat through it. He had no idea the email was fake, or that there'd never been a complaint, or that the only person watching them, the only person who cared at all, was a husband who knew exactly how to make chaos look like coincidence. By midday, Rachel was nowhere to be seen. Michael walked the trails alone, letting the thin mountain air clear the edges of his focus. He didn't need to chase her. Not yet. This wasn't about confrontation. This was about corrosion. From the inside out. He returned to Bungalow 9 that afternoon and reviewed the newest bracelet data. Another audio spike. Timestamp. Sunday, 11:41 a.m., Suite 4. Rachel's voice, hushed and furious. Why would they send that to me? It doesn't even make sense. Why did you give them my real name? Elliot, stammering. I didn't. I just slipped once. It's not a big deal. It is exactly a big deal. I told you to keep everything clean. Do you know what could happen if this gets back to it? A loud thud. A drawer slamming. Michael paused the clip. That was enough. He wasn't trying to expose them publicly. Not yet. But Rachel was spiraling now. Defensive. Suspicious. Already wondering if the walls were closer than she thought. Michael logged the audio and moved on to the final phase of the weekend, planting the seed. He opened a new document on his laptop. Wrote one sentence at the top. There's always someone watching. And they don't always wait to be invited. Then he added a set of photos, captured frames from the resort's own camera feed. Harmless enough to look accidental, suggestive enough to feel intimate. One of Rachel and Elliot mid-embrace in the hallway. Another of Rachel alone in a robe on the bungalow patio, smoking a cigarette she told Michael she'd quit 2 years ago. And one more. From Michael's own phone. The RSVP confirmation she'd sent with her fake name. Her fingerprint on a digital lie. He bundled the photos into a PDF. Named it RachelFar_OrchardRetreat.pdf. He attached it to an anonymous draft email. To RachelFarrow@iCloud.com. Subject, did you forget where the cameras are? He didn't send it. Not yet. Instead, he saved it in drafts, then screenshotted it, timestamp and all, and uploaded that image to a temporary Dropbox folder. A folder Rachel would open later, when she thought she was alone. Because Michael knew his wife. Knew her curiosity, her suspicion. She would never ignore something that looked like a threat but didn't act like one. He sent her the Dropbox link that night. From a disposable email. Just a message that said, "You should see this before someone else does." No signature. No demands. Just enough dread to keep her awake. And it worked. At 2:12 a.m., Michael's screen lit up with the Dropbox notification. Rachel Farrow viewed OrchardRetreat.pdf. Bingo. She didn't reply. Didn't forward it. But the next morning, at checkout, Michael watched her whisper something to Elliot, sharp and fast. Then she handed the room key back without making eye contact. Her retreat glow was gone. The sparrow calm replaced by hurried mascara and clenched teeth. They didn't leave together. Elliot stood outside the lobby for 10 minutes after she drove off alone, checking his phone like a man who just realized the game was over and he never even knew the rules. Michael didn't gloat. He didn't follow them. He didn't need to. This wasn't the end. This was chapter 1 of the news story. A story Rachel no longer controlled. And when she finally called him, because he wouldn't scream, or accuse, or beg. He'd say something simple. Something honest. I didn't destroy us, Rachel. I just stopped playing dumb. The call didn't come from Rachel. It came from Callie Wynn, co-founder of The Orchard. Michael was mid-breakfast in a small cafe near the airport when her name flashed across the screen. He'd expected fallout, maybe a stern email. He didn't expect a voice call. He answered, "Mr. Fairchild?" Her voice was calm, clipped, like a school principal who suspected a prank but admired the audacity. "This is he. I'm calling regarding a situation involving one of our guests, Rachel Farrow." He didn't respond. Let the silence do the work. Callie continued. "It seems she believes there was a breach of her privacy. Anonymous messages. Inappropriate files. She's understandably upset." Michael stirred his coffee. "I'm not sure what that has to do with me." Callie let out a small breath. "She gave us your name." That was fast. He'd expected at least a week of damage control before she cracked. "She's mistaken," Michael said simply. A pause. "I believe you," Callie said. "Which is why I'm calling. Off the record, let me be clear, whatever happened, it shook her. She left early. She was pale." Michael didn't fake sympathy. He let the silence hum. Callie lowered her voice. "Between us, we've had issues before. Guests using the resort to play games. But this one feels different." Michael raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "She's not scared someone saw her," Callie said. "She's scared someone knows her." And that was exactly the point. Rachel didn't call until 3 days later. No voicemail. No text. Just a ring-tone that rang too long before he finally picked up. "Mike?" Her voice cracked. Not from tears, from restraint. He let her hang in silence. I need to talk." "I gathered," he said, sipping water like he had all the time in the world. "I don't know what happened," she lied. I do. A beat. I made a mistake, she said, like it was a parking ticket. And I need to know how much you know. Michael tilted his head. That was the difference. Not, I'm sorry. Not why. Just how much. You sent that file? She asked. No. Then who? I suppose, Michael said, that depends on how many enemies you've made pretending to be someone else. She exhaled shakily. You don't get to act like the victim. I'm not, he said. I'm the observer. Always was. I didn't mean for it to go that far. No, he agreed. You meant for it to go just far enough that you could come back and pretend nothing happened. Silence. Then, can we meet? Already waiting, he said, and hung up. When she arrived at the house, their house, Michael was already at the kitchen table. One chair pulled out. One glass of water. Her favorite coaster underneath, like old habits were still muscle memory. She sat slowly. He didn't speak. She finally said, Are you going to divorce me? I'm not going to divorce you, he said, tapping a folder on the table. I'm going to release you. She stared at it. What's that? Your version of the truth, he said. Signed and notarized. What truth? The one you'll tell people, he said. Or the one I will. It's your choice. Rachel opened the folder. Inside, photos. Screenshots. The sweet footage. The RSVP. The fake name. The PDF. A second folder lay beneath. Smaller. Legal. Clean. A post-nuptial amendment. Michael nodded to it. That says if we separate on public terms of infidelity, with proof, you forfeit claim to the house, the savings, and the retirement fund. Her eyes widened. You already signed this? I already signed it, he confirmed. But if you prefer the narrative that we simply drifted apart, mutually and quietly, I'm willing to let it go. She swallowed hard. Why? Because I'm not here to ruin you, Rachel, he said. I'm just making sure you don't get to rewrite me. She looked down. So those are my options. No, he said gently. Those are the consequences. He stood, walked toward the hallway, then stopped. One more thing, he said, without looking back. The man you risked everything for? He already started seeing someone new. The resort concierge told him to keep a low profile. Apparently you're bad for his reputation. She didn't cry. Not yet. That would come later. Michael didn't move out. He waited. He waited while Rachel packed in silence. No outburst. No apology. Just motion, slow, mechanical, ashamed. The day she left, she paused at the doorway, holding her suitcase, wedding band still in her palm, like a piece of costume jewelry that no longer fit. I did love you, she said. Michael nodded once. You just stopped noticing. He smiled faintly. No. I noticed every single thing. Then he shut the door behind her. That night, he opened the window and sat with a beer on the porch under the orange tree. The fruit still hadn't ripened. Maybe it never would. But that was okay. Some things weren't meant to be sweet. 3 weeks later, Michael received an email from a journalist, the one he'd contacted before the orchard. Her message was simple. Subject, confirmed. This is going to be huge. Attached was a headline draft for a long-form investigative piece. Marketing power couple exposed in retreat scandal, fake IDs, emotional abuse, and the price of image. Rachel's new job, the one she'd planned to take after moving on, had folded overnight. Elliot had vanished from LinkedIn. The company denied knowledge. The PR firm retracted its offer. Michael never gave a quote. He never replied. Because revenge wasn't about volume. It was about design. And the orchard was never about forgiveness. It was a harvest. And he'd finally collected every piece of what she thought he was too soft to notice. Now, in silence, he stood among the ripening oranges and smiled.